So hello and welcome to another episode of Top Tens. I'm your interim host, Karl Smallwood. That's Karl with a K and Smallwood with a small wood. And today we're talking about 10 bizarre military tactics that actually worked. And as with all the videos here on Top Tens, this one is based on a script submitted to us by a member of our writing team. That writing member today being Jesse Clark. Follow them on the social media links below, and while you're down there clicking on stuff, you can like the video, comment, subscribe, feedback, suggestions, all that good stuff. But let's get to it. Most people can name one or two basic military maneuvers: the ambush, the charge, deception, the pincer maneuver. That's my favourite because of the name, but some battles have been won with much, shall we say, weirder tactics. The following examples are some of the most bizarre yet oddly brilliant tactics ever successfully deployed on the battlefield. And this being a very popular topic online, please let us know your favourites in the comments below that we've missed, and maybe we'll make a sequel to this, because if there's one thing I know about making content online, it's when you talk about anything to do with the military, warfare, or weaponry, there's always something weirder out there we haven't mentioned or covered. So we'd be very interested to hear about the stuff we missed. But without any further ado, number 10, Operation Mincemeat. Let's set the scene. It's 1943 and the Allies were cooking up a rather elaborate scheme to mislead the Axis powers, especially Nazi Germany, about their military intentions. The key ingredient, a corpse and a whole lot of imagination. Operation Mincemeat involved taking the aforementioned corpse, dressing it up like a drowned military officer, and then equipping it with a briefcase full of fake documents hinting at an impending attack on southern Europe. They then released this corpse of deception, as they called it, off the coast of Spain, a region known for its pro-German sympathies. Lo and behold, a few days later, the ruse worked like a charm. The Germans took the bait, shifted their troops, and unbeknownst to them, danced to the Allies' tune. And it's the kind of audacious plan that makes you appreciate the lengths people will go to in the name of strategy and a good plot twist. The corpse might not have known what was going on, but it played a key and crucial role in a game that ultimately helped tip the scales of a world at war. Operation Mincemeat, where fact meets fiction in the grand theatre of war. And keeping within the realms of World War II and the realms of the dead, number 9, the Ghost Army. So this isn't an actual army of badass phantoms and wraiths like in Lord of the Rings, but the real Ghost Army is arguably cooler. It was an Allied ploy during World War II that used, among other things, inflatable tanks, sound effects, and just general deception to create the mirage of a much larger and more powerful force. Imagine a canvas city complete with faux radio transmissions designed to divert the enemy's attention. They were master illusionists utilising tricks of sight and sound to make the Axis second guess and make costly missteps. They also deployed this army in areas that, when photographed by German reconnaissance aircraft and delivered to Nazi high command, made it seem like the Allies were planning to attack far away from their actual target. Their performances were both gutsy and pivotal, contributing significantly to the Allied success. A reminder that in the theatre of war, sometimes the most potent weapon isn't a gun or a bomb, but an artful and convincing illusion. Quite literally, a theatre of war. If anyone curious about the makeup of the Ghost Army, because I've done some research on it in the past, a bit of additional info here for people, is that it wasn't really comprised of soldiers, although there were some members of the reserve forces there to help with logistics and stuff. It was largely like special effects crews from TV shows and the like, who just wanted to contribute to the war effort in any way that they could by creating large wooden tanks that they'd like walk around with and stuff. It's bizarre, it's fascinating, and it's all true. Number 8, the double siege of Alesia. The year is 520 BCE, and Alesia, a hilltop fortress in present-day France, is the focal point. Vercingetorix had gathered a coalition of rebellious Gauls inside the fortress, presenting a challenge to Julius Caesar's legions. And if anyone curious, that is how Julius Caesar's name is pronounced. It's one of those few words from history that I was explicitly told by a history teacher. It's Julius Caesar. It's not Caesar as in Caesar salad, it's Kaiser. That's how the Romans pronounced it, and that was drilled into me every single history lesson at school, and it's stuck to this day. To break this deadlock, Kaiser developed an audacious plan. He encircled Alesia with massive fortifications, 2 concentric rings of defences, one faced outwards to repel attacks from Gallic reinforcements, while the other faced inwards to those within Alesia. This was, in a sense, a dual siege, a testament to Roman engineering expertise and logistical finesse. The Gauls inside the walls resisted fiercely, while their brethren outside tried to break through. The Romans were admittedly severely outnumbered and being attacked from literally all sides. Vercingetorix did everything right and still lost. This was Kaiser's magnum opus and the reason why he's considered one of history's greatest generals. We move on to number 7, hammering periscopes. U-boats, the deadly submarines of the German Navy during the World Wars, were the terror of the Atlantic. Like most submarines, their crews used periscopes to scout and target enemy ships. And during World War II, the Allies developed brand new techniques for dealing with U-boat wolf packs in order to protect precious shipping lanes. One such innovation was not really an innovation in any real sense and involved simply hammering the periscopes. And this isn't hyperbole or like a code word for something far more like technical. They literally would just sail up to periscopes when they spotted them in waters and just beat them senseless with hammers, wrenches, and anything else they had to hand. And in cases where this wasn't possible, they would simply tie a canvas sack over the periscope, tie it tightly, and then wait, because eventually the U-boat would be forced to surface, not knowing where it was or what was going on, at which point Allied forces could just, well, to put it lightly, bomb the ever-loving out of them. And this might sound like an incredibly rudimentary tactic to employ against such advanced weaponry and tactics, but as the old saying goes, if it works, it works. Speaking of which, number 6, the Night Witches. The Night Witches were a remarkable group of female aviators in the Soviet Air Forces during World War II. Known officially as the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, they earned their more, shall we say, ominous nickname from the Germans due to their stealthy night raids and the distinctive sound their planes made, which, to their victims on the ground, were compared to a witch's broomstick. As the name suggests, the Night Witches was composed entirely of women, and they flew outdated Polikarpov PO-2 biplanes, which were slow and made of wood and canvas. And just to put in perspective here how outdated these planes were, at around the same time the Nazis had developed jet technology, specifically the Messerschmitt Me-262, which was so fast that no plane in the sky could ever hope to catch up to it, forcing Allies to just attack them on the runway. Moving back to the Night Witches, they conducted their daring bombing missions under the cover of darkness, again lending to the nickname they achieved, wreaking havoc on German positions with precision and speed, all while remaining virtually invisible in the dark. And these pilots were so good they could often fly multiple sorties in a single night. And I've researched the Night Witches on my own time for articles I've written elsewhere, and there's a bunch of extra information I can offer here that makes them sound so much cooler. For example, some members of the Night Witch Regiment got so good at controlling their planes they could turn off their engines before they'd start their approach, allowing them to glide almost silently. And the biplanes they flew were so slow and maneuverable that they could literally fly just a dozen feet off the ground, barely touching the tops of trees. This will allow some especially brazen and audacious pilots to get close enough to German encampments to shout insults to the soldiers on the ground that they could hear, while haphazardly throwing grenades from either side of the plane, purely to demoralize the people on the ground because they knew that there'd be another squadron coming down to finish the job. And this probably has you thinking, well, what was just stopping the people on the ground just shooting at them at this point? I've played Call of Duty, you can do that, right? Well, the planes were so simply constructed that they had almost no moving parts, so most bullets just passed harmlessly through them. And even in the event that they did manage to shoot a plane down, they would go so slow that the pilots could simply wait until they were about to hit the ground, jump out, and then run off, which no doubt added to the frustration felt by the Germans. And one additional fact that I personally find hilarious is that the top speed of the Polikarpov PO-2 was actually slower than the minimum speed of most of the German aircraft in the air at the time, meaning that even if the Germans managed to scramble and get a plane off the ground, there was no way for them to go slow enough to actually engage in air-to-air combat with one, because they'd stall and crash. Which to me only makes me think of that scene in The Simpsons where Sideshow Bob steals a biplane and the jets just fly overhead and say,
"Suggest we get out and walk."
Which is literally what the Germans had to do, and even then it didn't work. Number 5, flaming camels. Timur was a Turco-Mongol conqueror and military genius of the 14th century, and one of his most notable tactics involved the use of flaming camels, which he employed with impunity during the Battle of Ankara in 1402 against the forces of the Ottoman Empire. And again, none of this is hyperbole or military jargon, it's exactly what it sounds like. During the battle, Timur's army faced a formidable opponent in the Ottoman Sultan, Bayezid I. Timur loaded camels with straw and hay, and then set them ablaze before releasing them into the enemy ranks. The sight of these flaming camels charging towards the Ottoman forces panicked their formidable war elephants and horses, causing disorder and chaos amongst their ranks. This confusion created by the flaming camels threw the Ottoman formations into panic, allowing Timur's forces to capitalize on the disarray and gain the upper hand. Timur won that battle, capturing Bayezid and dealing a significant blow to the Ottoman Empire, and all it cost him was a few camels. Speaking of which, number 4, bring your pets to war day. Specifically, cat paintings. You see, it's pretty well known that the ancient Egyptians revered cats and believed they possessed certain protective qualities. In fact, the Egyptians believed cats were a direct gift from one of their gods, who happened to have a cat-shaped head. You know, they were all about their animal-headed gods, and this is something their enemies frequently exploited. For example, at the Battle of Periscopes in 525 BC, the Persian Empire, led by Cambyses II, fought against the Egyptian dynasty under Pharaoh Psamtik III. It unfolded near Periscopes, a pivotal location in Egypt's eastern border, acting as a gateway to the Nile Delta. The Egyptians had extensive fortifications, but the Persians had cats. Lots and lots of cats. So what set the Persians apart was their innovative battle strategy, if you can call it that, revealing a keen grasp of Egyptian culture. Understanding the Egyptians' veneration of animals like cats tied to their deepest held religious beliefs, Cambyses II directed his troops to drive these sacred animals ahead of them, and some accounts suggest that they even depicted cat images and other sacred animals upon their shields, knowing that the Egyptians wouldn't dare strike at a depiction of one of their gods. The psychological tactic struck deep into the hearts of the Egyptian soldiers, instilling a fear of harming these much revered animals and invoking divine retribution. This hesitation proved to be advantageous because, as we all know, a second in battle is a lifetime, enabling them to breach the Egyptian defences and claim a major victory. And again, I've researched this on my own time for my own channel, Fact Feeding with Karl Smallwood, so some details that I can add here are that there are sources that suggest that some of the Egyptian soldiers were stabbed to death trying to rescue the cats. Moving on, number 3, self-mutilation. Cyrus was a Persian general who played a significant role in the siege of Babylon in 482 BC, and he decided upon a daring and rather brutal plan to weaken Babylon's defences, that being deliberately mutilating himself. Cyrus believed that this act would enable him to gain the trust of the Babylonians and infiltrate their city from within. And it worked. He executed this plan by cutting off his own ears and his nose, making it appear as though he had suffered severe punishment from King Darius. He presented himself to the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar, thank you The Matrix, help me pronounce that one, as a defector, claiming mistreatment by the Persians, and it worked. He gained the trust of the Babylonians and over time was given a position of authority within the city. Exploiting this newfound position, Cyrus orchestrated the sabotage of Babylon's defences, ultimately leading to its capture by the Persian forces. Losing the war, to me, seems like a better fate, but if it works, it works. Number 2, releasing one prisoner. World War I was a war defined by stalemate, where neither side could gain an upper hand, but it wasn't for lack of men to hurl into the teeth of enemy machine guns. Both sides improved their armament significantly. Poison gas, tanks, and airplanes all made their debut in this conflict, but the most decisive tactic employed by anyone in the entire war was arguably when the Germans released a single prisoner back to Russia. His name was Vladimir Lenin. Yes, that Lenin, and he did exactly what the Germans intended: spark the Bolshevik Revolution, which began the Russian Civil War, destroyed the Tsarist Empire, and knocked Russia out of the war entirely. And just like that, the entire Eastern Front was brought to a close, and Germany was able to fully focus on the Western Front against the combined forces of Britain and France. With all their troops now freed up, the Germans moved over to the offence in the West and the advancement of the 1918 Spring Offensive, which nearly brought the Allies to their knees. Unfortunately for them, they ran out of steam just as the Americans arrived, and it all fell apart. Thanks, Americans. But still, by simply releasing Lenin, the Kaiser's army very nearly defeated their mighty enemies single-handedly. Which brings us to number 1 on this list. Hannibal beats an enemy fleet with snakes. In one intriguing episode of Hannibal Barca's military campaigns during the Second Punic War, he demonstrated his flair for, shall we say, unconventional tactics. Now, Hannibal is well known for his use of animals. He's the guy who pioneered the use of war elephants, but during a naval skirmish against King Ximenes II of Pergamon, Hannibal took an audacious approach to unsettle his opponents. Rather than relying solely on traditional naval strategies, Hannibal directed his troops to collect hundreds upon hundreds of venomous snakes from the local terrain. He then ordered his men to simply hurl these venomous creatures onto the enemy ships, and the effect of this was understandably immediate and chaotic. The sailors freaked and abandoned their posts in quite a hurry, leaping into the sea to escape the animals. The result? The ships were deserted and Hannibal was left in command of the area. Now, of course, this wasn't Hannibal's most famous victory, but it did show that he was pretty good at his job and was one of the most innovative commanders in history. And I find it hard to believe that no one thought of the tactic of just throwing snakes at the enemy, because that seems so effective. Even Conan did that, right? With like the snake arrows. But either way, I hope everybody out there found this video to be informative, educational, and entertaining. I certainly found the script to be all three of those things, and if you agree, you can go thank Jesse Clark for writing it on their social medias linked below. You can find me down there too. You can also leave a like, comment with feedback, suggestions, anything we missed. We know that like military history buffs love correcting people and adding additional context and stuff like this, so go nuts down there in the comments. Subscribe for more, and as always, go out there and have the day you deserve. Cheers.